after studying the global state of design, what we decided that we had to do is to start where everyone lived, which is in their house. And so we created a project called the World House Project, which we've been working on for 4 years, which is just our attempt, like many, many other people are attempting all over the world, to find better solutions and better ideas about how to create systems for housing. And one of the things that we did when we started this is we knew that it wasn't about looking at a house as a product or looking at a house as an environment. We knew that instinctively that was the old way of looking at it. So what we did is we were inspired by a quote by Leonardo da Vinci, who wrote about cities, that cities are actually flows of systems. And so we started to say, okay, if we're going to begin this research, we're going to start by trying to understand what are the systems that make up a house, and how have they changed over time, and how do they work. So we've developed what we call a whole systems design matrix that has lenses, which we call values, which have to do with purpose, and then filters, in this case, terrain, climate, economy, and culture, that are really about the nature of the guiding factors of the design. And then systems that lie within them, so water, food, waste. So if you're going to design a house, it's really about the system of water moving through the house. And it's about the system of food and the interactions with food in the house. And for us, this opened up a new way of thinking. And what we've been trying to do is develop this further and develop tools. And we're experimenting. We don't know if this is right. And that one of the things we always do is we don't think that what we're doing is right. What we try to do is test. We come up with an idea, let's test it, let's play with it, and let's see. So what we did in this case is, if this was going to generate housing and better housing, we decided to work with families in Toronto. And so we designed a house for one family, so we brought the mother, the father, and the kids in, and we worked with them. And it was very interesting because we started to understand how the systems work together. And one of the scary things at first was we thought that the financial system was controlling everything, because this family wanted to make a greenhouse, but in the end they were making a 5-bedroom, 3,500 square foot house. And as we went through the systems of the house, the family started to realize, geez, we're not doing a very green house. And, but they kept saying, but you know what, I need to resell the house. And if I don't put the 5 bedrooms, I can't resell the house. And so the students who are working on this kind of became very despondent, because they thought, oh geez, you could have all these systems, and the food and the energy are so important, but it's always going to come down to the finances. Until we started to examine it more closely. And it was, the finances were really just a manifestation of another system. And we started to learn that the real system that was guiding everything was the identity system. Because the reason people would buy that house was because it matched a certain identity of what the house should be for people. And the financial system just reflected the value of what most people shared as what the house should be. Right? So this started opening up our mind about how do you work with these systems, and how, if you make people aware of the systems, they can understand how one system is overly guiding another system. And it really started opening up our minds to thinking about how this kind of worked. So we started to develop tools. This is a tool that we developed that I'll go into later in more detail, which was, maybe you could invent new ideas by crossing words that were part of the system. So say you took the idea of sewage from waste and farming from food and created sewage farming. What would that be? And interestingly enough, it would be a living machine by John Todd. So we start to realize that you can actually use the systems to crossbreed and create new kinds of designs. So another thing that we realized was that maybe we could imagine systems that were open so that people around the world could collaborate. And so we started thinking of how design, like standard time, that we could create something for housing which would allow all the pieces and elements of products that go into a house to be able to interact with each other and work together. And I'll show you an example of what was come out of